Hey everybody, today we are going to run through supplies, setup, and getting Casey on his dialysis machine. It's an interesting process for those of you who've never seen it, and for those of you who do home hemo at home, I'm curious how you may do your process differently. Just a quick little show of this is where I keep my supplies. I'll be taking everything out from here, and from up here, here's his blood spinner for days we take blood. Today we will not be taking blood. He also has his Venifer medication right here that goes in at the end of treatment, and today is not a Venifer day. Venifer days are Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That is for his hemoglobin and to keep his red blood cells moving correctly and his iron levels at the right amount. So we're going to start there. I'm going to get the table set up and we'll get him hooked up. The first thing, most important thing we do is we pull out the dialysis cartridge and saline bags. We start with one saline bag, and we always switch it out so we do not risk any air coming into the spike. So I'm going to get this opened, set up, and put into his machine. We'll go directly into his cycler machine, which is here. Down here is his pure flow machine, which has all of the dialysate in it. Shockingly, they do not talk to each other. They're two completely separate pieces, but they do work together. So that cartridge we have to take papers off of. I have to wrap it around my arm. I have to stick the saline bag. So I'm going to get all of that done, as well as set up all of our other supplies. And we have our own, just have a little setup of our stuff. We have a note from Katie. We always keep it. Notes from Aaliyah. And we have another section right there with all of our books. And usually has our iPad in there. The iPad for dialysis. The thermometer, the heating pad for cramps, all that good stuff. And we keep the oxygen concentrator right next to him because that helps with many, many things. We did everything we needed to do with the cartridge I showed you in the bag, which is this, goes all the way through. This piece right here is called the dialyzer, and it is essentially acts as his kidney during dialysis. So the machine's going, it starts at 23 minutes, and this is the machine priming itself, getting all of the air out, well, as much of the air out as possible. As you can see, we go through several syringes. So as the machine preps, I also start prepping my tables. This is my first table. My other table is over by my hutch. And when the machine is done, then I'll have Casey sit down and we'll show you the complete setup process. Today we will not be taking blood, and today we will not be doing Venifer. And I will show those on a different day though, because taking blood from his catheter is a lot simpler than you would think, and the way you have to give Venifer is very, very specific, so it goes in the right way, not too fast, so they can't taste it. So we'll do Venifer and blood draws on the same day, another day. I'm going to clean his heparin and pull his systemic heparin prior to treatment, and heparin for his catheter lines after treatment. This is a very, very basic setup because, as I said, it does not include blood work nor vinegar, but it gives you a good idea. The heparin has to be cleaned for 15 seconds before drawing, and as well, each syringe needs to be pulled back to his dosage amount before it's inserted into the heparin bottle to help keep the most amount of air out as we can. Okay guys, so now we are at what we call snap and tap. So we have our machine is hooked up. It has a 23 on it, if you can see that, which means it's ready for me to snap and tap. Basically, I pull on sections of each cord all the way through the dialyzer. I get to, sorry about that guys, the dialyzer over there. And once I get to that, I also have to get the air bubbles out of the top and bottom of that. And at that point, I stop the machine. I put all of his settings in, how much fluid we're taking off today. There's a rate screen, there's a volume screen. I'll get into that another day. And I connect each of these lines that you see here. That's not how they stay. They get connected white to white, green to green, yellow to yellow. Certain clamps have to be clamped, certain clamps have to be unclamped. So that's the process that I'm going to be doing now. And when that's done, then it's time to clean his catheter. With home hemodialysis, a lot of people will have fistulas and some will have catheters. Casey has a catheter. He has a chest catheter. It's put in under his muscle. It goes in his right side. Yes, it goes in his right side and it goes under his muscle. You can see the line and you'll be able to see it when I'm accessing it. And it goes under his muscle, and the tip of it goes into the top region of his heart chamber. And as I'm accessing it, I have to make sure the push and pull is good. If it's not good, then I know that there's some sort of issue, and I most likely won't do treatment until I talk to a nurse. But that's what I'm going to be doing now, and the next section will be us actually getting him cleaned up and completely hooked up. As far as next stage and the machine, for anybody else who's using them and needs like a refresher on connecting lines or maybe a different way to do it, I'll do a video on just all of these different things I have. You know, the setup tables, the snap and tap, the vinegar, the heparin, the syringes and what each and every one is for. Like, for example, this is to pull the heparin out of the lines that are in now. These are placeholders for his venous and arterial lines when it's time to hook up. Over here, these are all to clean his catheter. This is to flush and pull with saline. This is to completely flush, the flush and pull on each of his lines. This is heparin that goes, this is saline that goes in after the heparin, just to make sure there's no clotting in those lines. And this last one, the syringe ends up hanging up on the bag and is used at the end of treatment. And I do switch bags, as I said, in the middle of treatment. But all of those things we'll do maybe like one video at a time. This is just, like I said, a run through of the process to getting him going and how it starts and how the blood comes out of his body, gets cleaned through the machine, and goes back into his body. Okay, so next to his chair where I have all the syringes set up, I'm going to fill them all up before we start. So we're going to fill up all the ones that we're going to use to mix and to flush his catheter. And the very, very last one will hang like this with everything clamped for the end of treatment. So we're just going to get that done real quick and then access his catheter. Okay, now we're at a point where everything is set up. All the lines are connected. Settings on his machine are set. His alcohol pads are open. His saline syringes are ready. And we're going to get to cleaning his catheter right now. Okay guys, now we're going to clean and access his catheter. I'll give you the best views as possible. I always wear a mask during this part, and every time you see me turn around, I'm changing my gloves because I don't want any cross-contamination. When you have a chest catheter, you have a much higher risk of infection, and we really, really just don't want that. So we're going to clean it. Which I always check it before I clean it, make sure there's nothing, no drainage, nothing red, nothing out of the ordinary. Okay, sit up straight. So always clean inside to out. You start with one side of the swab stick, and then I flip it and go 2 inches out all the way around. I'll do it one more time at the end, just because I get lots of stuff that comes off of it. The second one is to clean the line itself. So this one I use on his line. I use one side for the front, one side for the back, and I've already looked at the back, so I know that there's nothing sticky or gooey on it. Sometimes I'll get into cleaning these, but they look really, really good tonight. And the last one is to go around this 2 inches one more time and make sure there's nothing sitting, no little pieces in the way. Like I see a little piece right there, I gotta get out of the way. So we got that clean, and then change my gloves. Sanitize and then change my gloves. Here's a sterile gauze on my other table, and I open it. I don't touch the side that's going to be touching him. Then of course I drop it, but still, do not touch the side that's going to be touching him. And when I prep, I have the tape ready right here. even as I can and as flat as I can for treatment, and to keep it clean in between treatments. Okay, so we're all set up. Casey's ready to go. I'm ready to go. We just have to get his catheter ready to go. The red line is always the arterial line. The blue line is always the venous line. This is negative pressure. This is the line I take blood from. This is positive pressure. This is the line that I give him his medications in. Both lines can be flushed with saline, and that's how we're gonna start. First we're gonna pull the heparin that's in his lines that go to his heart. We have to pull that heparin out. At the end of treatment, we'll put new heparin in. And then we're gonna flush these lines. I'm gonna give you the best view I can from the other side of the room, but we're gonna mix the saline with his blood to make sure that the push and pull and positive and negative pressure is good. It doesn't like catch up on me or make it difficult, because in that case, that's when I would have to call a nurse, and we might have to have a dose of medication to break up clots. But right now, as of right now, they seem to be working very, very well. So we're gonna do that now. I'm putting my gloves on, and once I have the gloves on and I'm only accessing this, I'm not cross-contaminating anything. I don't have to repeatedly change gloves. And I wash each lumen in between everything I do, just to make sure they're clean. So I'm gonna hold my first syringe in my hand and get an alcohol swab. And I'm gonna start with his arterial. Always start with arterial. And I'm gonna clean it for 15 seconds. It's nice and clean. I'm going to put the syringe on it. I always invert when I put the syringes on. Unclasp it, and we'll see if the heparin comes right out, which it did. So now the heparin is out. I'm going to clamp them up and do the same thing on the other side. Now we're going to do this on the venous side. The venous side has the medications put in it, so a lot of times it has to be cleaned super well after treatment and again before you start, especially with Venifer. It's very, very sticky, and sticky can cause bacteria. So it's very clean right now. Now if it doesn't come out easily, I have Casey move his head around, sometimes cough, and it just loosens it right up. So I'm gonna unclamp, pull heparin, and this one pulled very easy too. So there's no having to move around. So the heparin's out. Take my first saline syringe, and I'm going to mix the saline with his blood back and forth a few times to make sure the negative and positive pressure in his line is good. I have to prime the saline, of course. Always invert. Don't want any air going into them. Make sure there's no air. Then when I open it up, I pull back just a tad to pull those air bubbles out. And I push it in, pull it out, push it in, pull it out. And he has really, really good flow right now on this line. So I'm going to make sure there's no air in there. And I'm going to flush it, clamp it. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. All my old syringes go in the biohazard. Prime the saline. Invert. Make sure there's no bubbles in there. Couple came out. I'm gonna unclamp them now. Do the same thing. I'm gonna pull back. That pulled quite a few air bubbles out. And then I'm gonna just back and forth a couple times, making sure it's a smooth line, and it really is. I have no issues at all accessing either side right now. So I'm gonna flush that. Now, because I push and pulled, you can see in his lines up here, there's blood. We don't want blood in those lines, so I'm gonna take a pre-filled saline syringe, get all the air to the top. And I'm just gonna flush. I'm not gonna push and pull. I'm gonna make sure there's no air in the saline syringe. I'm gonna prime it. No air. Still invert. I'm gonna unclamp. Get those air bubbles to the top. And completely flush that line. That tastes like crap. That's the one that tastes like alcohol. Like straight alcohol going in. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Take this off. That told us that the lines were nice and clear. I'm going to open up the pre-filled syringe, prime it, invert, always keeping it clean, no cross-contaminating. Make sure there's no air bubbles in there. And again, this is just a straight shot of saline to break anything up that's in there and to clear that line. Okay, both lines are clear. So now we're going to go to his venous line. This is his heparin right here. Make sure there's no air in that. This also has to get mixed. It's exactly his dose. This has to get mixed with his blood. This is systemic heparin, so it's going to go through his body for about the amount of time dialysis runs. That's about how long it lasts. again, even being heparin, I still invert. I don't want them to get any air. The least amount of air as possible. Okay. Make sure I get those bubbles at the top. And like I said, this one is very important that I do pull back and mix several times. I keep an eye on the air bubbles in there. Sorry guys, my hands are right in the way, huh? Keep an eye on the air bubbles, and I make sure that that heparin is mixed really well with his blood, and that the negative and positive pressure is smooth. I'm not struggling at all. Okay, so now I'm going to give him his dose of heparin. Clamp him off. And I have to let that sit 3 to 5 minutes before starting the machine. The machine is ready to go. I do have to do one last dose of saline into his venous line, and we do that to avoid alarms that may say there's air or that the line is clogged. We know very well that the lines aren't clogged. We just tested them numerous times and flushed them numerous times. So we're gonna flush that heparin in just a minute here, and then I'm going to take these lines and connect them red to red on him and blue to blue on him, and that's where the process of dialysis actually starts. So let me change my gloves. Real quick. I always sanitize when I change my gloves, always, always. And once I start switching out lines, I'm going to have him put his feet up. And probably after I end the video, we have a cushion that holds his feet up high, because the chair that we were given by them was broken upon delivery. So we've been working with a broken chair for the last 2.5 months. So I have to get his feet up so gravity can do its work during dialysis as well. But like I said, I'll probably do that once I end it. So, heparin's been sitting there long enough. I'm going to get my alcohol to clean it. I never touch the part that's cleaning the actual lumen. And I'm going to get my saline to flush it. I'm going to clean this real quick. Invert the saline after I prime it. That line looks good. I'm gonna flush it. Now he's ready to get connected to his machine. And of course, all biohazard goes to biohazard. Okay, so I'm gonna come over to the machine I was showing you. I'm going to use a syringe as a placeholder as I take this off. While I'm taking this off, I have to be very careful. If I were to drop this line right now, I would have to start the entire process over. I can't just wipe it off with alcohol. So red is gonna go to red. This comes off. I always give it a quick clean. Not everybody does it, I do. I connect his arterial line. I make sure it has a very tight connection, which it does. Now, I'm going to do the same thing on his venous line. I'm going to take it from over here. I'm going to put the place holder in its place. Sometimes they get a little tangled up, so I untangle them while I can. I'm going to hold it tight in my hand along with my alcohol swab. I'm going to clean this like one more time. Now I tighten this one, and when I tighten it, I get this. This is a safety clamp, since this is the positive pressure. I'm gonna put the safety clamp on, clamp it. Now I'm going to move the arterial red. I'm going to unclamp it and move it down. Same with the venous blue. I make them about even. Grab the hemostats. Put the lines in there. And I'm not sure how well you can see, but I connect it where it's as flat as possible. And connect it to his shirt. So now he's completely connected. He's ready to go. I'm going to show you his connection lines. And the last thing I do, let me sanitize. Because now I have to open the lines closest to him, straighten them out. I double check all my clamps. Make sure they're open. I kind of keep my wires like this so I can watch as dialysis is happening. So I'm going to open the arterial white, and I'm going to move it up because we don't want the clamp to stay in the same spot. If it does, it can end up causing a kink that ends up being a hole, and we don't want any air holes, so I move them every single day. We have a very nice straight connection. So unclamp, 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 clamp, clamp. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to check my dialysate lines. Those are unclamped. I'm going to check my effluent lines. Those are unclamped. So I'm going to have him kick up his feet. Hey, baby. You want to kick up your feet? I'll help you. This way. And lean your head back. Comfortable. There you go. Okay, so he's all clamped up. He's comfortable. Everything that needs to be unclamped is unclamped. Everything that needs to be clamped is clamped. So now I'm going to go over to his machine, and we're going to hit, this is how you can, this is his volume screen. He gets 30 liters of dialysate, and we are removing 2.2 liters of fluid. This is his rate screen, and this is his blood flow. His prescription is 400. This, on the camera, it's backwards, but this starts at 200, so I have to slowly increase it as I start treatment, which I'm going to do right now. He has his oxygen on. I'll start treatment, show you how it flows, and then when I'm all done, I'm gonna go ahead and get his, let's see, blue foot pillow, and I'm gonna put it under his feet so gravity can do its work that way, since the chair isn't working correctly. So, you ready to start, babe? Baby?
I'm ready.
You ready? Okay. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna hit the kidney button, that's how we start. And the ProFlow. And I'm going to immediately start increasing his blood flow. And as you can see, it's coming out of his arterial line. And you're going to see it come through the dialyzer in just a minute here. Okay, so now it's coming through the dialyzer, and it is working its way back up into him. The light color is the clean blood. So the toxins come out of the red, it goes through the dialyzer, comes back through this line and into the blue, which gives him his clean blood. And that is our setup process. Yes, it does take us a little while, but we do everything we can to stay very, very sanitary and to avoid any alarms. And by doing all the pushing and pulling and checking beforehand. So throughout this whole process, he might sleep through the whole thing, he might be awake through the whole thing, it just depends on the day. And I will be checking his vitals every 30 minutes and documenting it on the iPad. When we're all done, we do vitals, weight, temperature, sitting blood pressure, standing blood pressure. A whole nother video will be dedicated to the end of treatment. This was the complete beginning. So that's how we start our dialysis. Thank you guys for watching, and I really, really hope we have some success with entering the raffle. Look forward to hearing about that. Thanks, guys.